My guest for the morning, Theophilus Tetechai, is a member of parliament for Ablekuma Central. He's here in the studio. Thanks for joining me, sir. I love your suits.
Thank you.
And
he's a big man.
Yeah, he's a big man. And I love your political suit too.
I'm a small man.
The heavyweight.
No, you're a heavyweight too. And Obi Amwa is a member of parliament for Ikuapem South. And we know that, well, they've been in the news, the MPs, haven't they? If it's on the matter of the DVLA or concerns they are going to raise about tomorrow's budget that will be read by the Finance Ministry, led by the team leader, that's the Minister of Finance. We're going to have a lot more issues to talk about. But straight away, let's hit your screens with the subject of the DVLA. We know that the MPP, they put together a press conference, and it was by the acting chairman of the party, who depends on how you want to say it, is the first vice chairperson as well, but he's acting. And Freddie Blake addressed that very press conference just because the DVLA apparently has been having some issues with a current contract, which apparently, according to the investigations by Joy News, indicated it had been bloated. The chairman, you're the substantive chairman of the committee, aren't you, in Parliament? And so tell us what conclusions you drew, and subsequently then we'll talk about the MPP's press conference.
Thank you very much. Good morning to your cherished viewers. Currently, we've not as yet drawn any conclusion to the issue, simply because as a committee, there are so many stakeholders when it comes to this issue, and to have a proper understanding of what actually took place, we need to listen to all the stakeholders so that the committee will be well informed as to the finality or the conclusion of the issue based on what is presented before us.
But as far as we're concerned, would you say that the matter at the face level, with which we've discussed it in the media consistently, is the way it is? Because we know that the former chief executive of the DVLA appeared before you, apparently had signed a contract, and well, I would say, reading by his emotions, he didn't know he had that was the set amount that he signed, so to speak. But of course, we know that it's not emotions that you use in managing. So.
Exactly. So your question is, do you want me to expatiate on what we've been able to unearth, or?
Yes, for example, he appeared before the committee and said to err is human, because he didn't know exactly what he had signed, even though he had signed it with an intention that what he signed was 3.6 million, the sum of the contract.
Well, per what we have heard, the facts presented before the committee, I would say that that human error is something unpardonable.
Unacceptable, you say?
Yeah, unacceptable. Okay. Looking at the caliber or the person in question. You know, the former CEO is an astute lawyer. It belongs to your profession, isn't it? Yeah. And I believe as lawyers, one cardinal principle is the fact that when documents are brought before you, they are very good at scrutiny. And that is why my colleague is the chairman for the subsidiary legislation. Yeah, so it is highly unacceptable that he concluded that it was as a result of him not reading the document before signing. But if you want me to go into what we've been able to unearth so far in terms of the issues, per our committee meeting, DVLA officials admitted that the 2006 contract was one of the worst contracts they have ever signed. So we asked, why were they saying so? That it's one of the worst contracts they have ever signed. And the response they gave was that it is the worst contract we've ever signed simply because the measures or the deliverables that the company was supposed to do. He couldn't meet those deliverables. And they were only expecting that at the expiration of that particular contract, its mandate would never have been renewed. But for some reasons, the contract was renewed. So the question we asked was, before the renewal, was there any appraisal? Because if you've gone into any contract with an entity and the contract term is ended and you want to extend the contract, the first thing you need to do, or even within the contract, prior, before, or during, or after, you need to do some form of appraisal to actually know what the person is doing. But contrary to our expectation, there was no appraisal on his activity, only that the contract was 6 years, and by the end of 6 years, the contract elapsed. And then the contract was renewed. Now, the thorny issue for us as a committee is the fact that these resources are public money. Before they continued with the contract, they had to go to PPA, the Procurement Authority, for approval. And in going to the Procurement Authority, they included itemized in terms of equipment, all the things that they needed to add up to that contract sum. And what was sent to the PPA, the request was $3.6 million for sole sourcing, because they wanted the same contractor to continue with the work. Now, PPA also approved the sole sourcing, gave them the go-ahead. And that was it. There is no documentation to show that the then former chief executive went back to PPA to maybe revise the 3.6 million that was approved. But then what was shown to us was a second contract. And the second contract indicated that the amount was 9.9 million. Now, upon perusing, going through the document, we realized that even in terms of itemization of the various items that amounted to $9.9 million, if you do the calculation, it was even more than even what was there.
It was even more than 9.9?
Yeah. It was even more than that. And
okay.
Yes.
Something like 12.
Yeah, get over 11
really?
million. Yes. And where the signature was appended, where the then CEO appended the signature, was just before the contract sum. So
you mean in the typo?
Yeah, in the
the type sheet.
Yes, exactly. So it was very difficult to understand why
he could have glossed over.
Exactly.
While signing.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that is the picture. So for us as a committee, what we are looking at, first of all, the documents that they had from the supporting, the approval that they had from PPA. Before they went for the application, there were some documents attached. And we requested for those documents. Unfortunately, the outgoing CEO didn't have those documents. And those documents were actually not available in their... but per the letter that was written to PPA, as part of that letter was attached some documents. So, as a committee, we have decided, first of all, to...
So you're saying you can't find the documents now?
Yeah, so we'll request...
DVLA to come find the document?
Yeah, they don't have it.
They don't have it?
Yeah, exactly.
And the procurement authority...
Yeah, so that is what our committee is doing now.
Requested now.
Yeah, for those documents. Now...
You have to conclude on me. I think I've given 10 minutes.
Oh, okay. So, in fact, for us as a committee, we were a little bit worried with the turn of events. Because these are experienced people who have been in public office for a very long time. And I must say that the outgoing CEO did a very good job, and then the board. Because the board, together with the CEO, were in agreement that that money need not be paid. And they insisted that money will not be paid because there's no documentary evidence to prove that they went to the Public Procurement Authority for approval for such an amount.
Okay, I get your point. But then the MPP concludes that he said they were worried, but you conclude that this is just one of the schemes to create loot and share.
Well, thank you, Roland.
Is it because of the turn of events?
Thank you and good morning. He ended by saying that the immediate past CEO did a good job. So why did they sack him? He's still a young man. Rudolph Beckley. If he did a good
Engineer
job.
Rudolph Beckley, yes.
If he did a good job and he insisted on not paying, what has happened that overnight he's been replaced by another person?
What are you supporting?
No, but that is part of the whole jigsaw puzzle. I mean, this is one of the most scandalous issues that you can ever think of. I've never in my life heard that you can sign an agreement for a particular figure, and then later on the figure will change even after procurement has given approval, and then you express surprise and say to err is human. It reminds me of the story, very interesting story, of a guy who went to a party, and when he got to the party and saw the food around, started bragging, what kind of food is this? This is not the kind of food I eat. So, how come you're serving this kind of food? Unfortunately for him, he started throwing up. And the food which came out was worse than the food he came to me there. Instead of keeping quiet, he started, how? This word is dangerous. This is not what I ate. How come this is what is coming out? This is what this is what Abegashi is telling us. That you can sign a contract of 3.3.
You mean he's kidding with us?
It comes to 9.9. And you're telling me, even when they itemize it, it gets to almost 12 million.
What do you make of it?
It's an indictment on the whole government. One, it's an agency of government. It works under a ministry. The government itself came out under this president that for certain procurement issues and the figures involved, they should seek clearance from the presidency. And now, did they go through all this? And how long did it take the government to even realize this? And how proactive are we in such situations? And this is just a tip of the iceberg. If you were to tackle state institutions, state-owned enterprises, and the way they go about things, this may be just a small part of it. A lot of these CEOs are running the show anyhow. They are running the show the way they want to run it, and some of the ministers are powerless. And if you pick procurement reports, the recent one hasn't come, but up to, I don't know, the last one we had was about 2013. Pick the reports, the kind of figures you find there, and the sole sourcing approach they use in addressing all these things. The government was worried and came out to say that some of these things we need to clear them. But has the government been doing it? Or is it that some CEOs are favorites and they can do what they want? Or is it that some CEOs can ignore their ministers and then report directly to the presidency? It's a whole issue of governance, and then people are doing what they want. Now back to this specific issue. Why we are worried is that one person cannot do this kind of scam. It's a whole scam and one person cannot do it. So who are those involved? How many have been interdicted? What investigation have we done apart from Yoko? What recommendations did Yoko even make? And then what is the Attorney General doing about it? If others are involved and they are still in business, the first thing you do is to interdict them. The first thing you do is to say that we need to question on all these issues. Payments have been made. It's not that no payment has been made. Payments, ongoing payments. And even if you listen to Photo X, the CEO, he is telling us that he is the one who will determine and who knows how much will be spent on this project. Because as he spends for the government to admit and pay. So what kind of contract is that? And if you listen to Joe Oseusu, when this whole process started, that is not what they wanted it to go. I heard one of the officers there complaining that it was the worst contract they had dealt with. When he was asked, he said that the implementation became a huge problem. Because the person who was supposed to administer this whole thing frustrated everybody. And doing that, they had regretted going to such a contract. Now, the contract ends and it's renewed. It's renewed with higher figures. So what kind of due diligence do we do? Or is it favoritism? Meanwhile, even, I don't want to personalize issues, but we were told that Amegashi was victimized because MPP came and the MPP asked him to proceed on leave. He never came back. That was 2001. 8 years later, it was one of the first appointments. 2009, it was one of the first appointments. Go back to DVLA. Whoever put him there, he became a lord unto himself. And look at the mess. It's so embarrassing to the government that I wonder how they think that if a child calls them and then starts talking in the media about the committee, what the committee is doing, this thing will go away. It won't go away. He's doing his part, doing his bit, but it won't go away.
You mean what? He's managing? Managing the issue. He's managing for them.
Managing the issue for them. Telling us what he needs to tell.
But he's not standing again, so he doesn't have a problem. You can talk as much as you want. So we have to wrap up a minute because we have to go on Martin Amidu and the rest. But as far as we're concerned, you have looked at this as a committee. I know sometimes in Parliament you try to be diplomatic about this because this is the workings of the state, and the state has to run. But how do we make sure that forthwith we're able to have a clamp on this and say, look, these are the things that were wrong. These are the people who are responsible for them. And we have to make sure actions are taken.
Yeah, for me, exposure is very necessary if you want to protect the public.
So now with exposure,
exactly.
What action do we take next?
The action to be taken lies with state institutions that are mandated to ensure that citizens operate within the law. IOCO did a good work. They started the investigation. And for me, I indicated that it was very proactive. Because if they had not come in, maybe these monies would have been, by this time, paid. So they did a very proactive work, and that is how our state institutions needs to work. As I talk to you now, I've requested my clerk to get us a copy of their report, so that as a committee we will also study and then know exactly their recommendations, because they've made recommendations to the AG's department, and it was based on that that the AG instructed DVLA not to pay. So we want to also assess that document, look at because they might have done maybe a thorough investigation, even more than what maybe we are doing, so that we know exactly some of the evidence that they were able to adduce as a result of that, and then the recommendations that they have made, and then we compare it with what the AG department has also done to see whether it is in line. And then by doing so, I think the public will be served better.
What actions need to be taken?
Well, first we need to know the reports, the IOCO reports. Is it the final report? Is it interim? Have they forwarded the report to the AG? What actions is the AG taking about such a report? Who are the persons named in the report? Is it just one person who is named, or it's a chain? Who played what role? They even brought in the former minister who is now at local government, because that he was in charge of transport. What was his role in this? Was he informed? He didn't know about this. And for how long did he keep it till he changed ministries? All these are critical issues that we need to know. And then the law should take its course. Everybody should have his day in court. Those who can defend themselves, they defend themselves. Okay.
There's been a banter between former Attorney General Martin Amidu and then Tiger IPI, a team led by Anas Arimeyaw Anas. We all know they came out with a recent investigative expose on the judiciary. And Martin Amidu seems to be challenging the intent, objective, and authenticity, and even credibility of some works that Tiger IPI came out with. What do you make of what has been going on the last couple of days?
Well, it's very unfortunate. And then I would say that the devil is very powerful, but the devil is a liar. I mean, these are crusaders. These are people who want to expose corruption. They're all doing their bit. All of a sudden, you hear them fighting. And you think that this is the work of the devil. It cannot be anything other than the work of the devil. Just to
bring them apart.
Yes, just to create division, even on their front. And every morning you hear they are good at writing. So by the time you wake up, the latest salvo would have hit you. And then it's give and take. But I don't think that Honorable Matiamidu has gone about it the right way. He is known to be somebody whose major playground is the courts. Now, if he thinks he has anything wrong with what is going on, he should proceed to court. And then any party who's been indicted will also then file. And then we have processes. What is going on is partly rumor, partly politics, partly abusive language. I don't think that is the way we need to go.
You don't think it's decorous enough? And it also doesn't help the cause of
doesn't help
the anti-corruption?
Yes. So that anti-corruption front is just firing themselves, and I'm sure the government is sitting back laughing. Because whether ANAS was contracted by government or not, or whether ANAS has other things that he's sharing, whether Matiamidu has enough information on it, I don't think this is the way he should go about it. This business of abusing the other party because you don't think or believe in what the person is doing, it's not right. That's how come the ANAS team are even saying that maybe Matiamidu has been hired by some of the judges just to scatter whatever they are doing. That's my attitude, is that we need both of them. The Amidu camp, Tiger Eye camp. So if they are going to spend their energy fighting, quarreling, abusing themselves, especially from the Amidu camp, I don't think this is the way to go. And his weakness that I've identified is every time he wants to draw the government in. And by drawing the government in, then he fires from every angle. And then he gives the impression that because he was in government, everything that he says
it's authentic.
It's authentic and we should believe it. And then goes on to say we can even prove it. Whereas in some situations, he's not able to prove it. If you have the proof, bring it out. Let the average person, independent-minded person, judge. And then make his own conclusions, or also join a discussion and look at the way forward. But have it and it doesn't come out. For instance, what he was said to have produced as proof turned out to be a hoax, because he said Professor Mills' last wish was to finish with the judiciary and deal with the legislature, and that ANAS had done it, but it turned out that he was talking about something else. The soul takers, this same DVL issue, where people have fake licenses and they go on the road and end up killing people. That video is out. Apparently, that video is what he thought was what Professor Mills said. But that's, indeed, they said they had been commissioned by the government to do that kind of job. So for Matiamidu to equate that with a job on the legislature meant that he could have asked more questions and they could have explained them to him without coming out, and then when you are shown to have been wrong, then you jump to another matter, to the extent of saying that if the thing is limited, why are they not using limited? If on the books is there as limited, does it mean that if you don't use
purposes, you can use the
Joy FM or multimedia, you say multimedia because you didn't add limited, then you are a fake company. I don't think that's how the system should work.
Does this
slow down?
Does this matter the debate, Theophilus, about the whole intent to make sure that if there's a wrong in a certain aspect of our society and governance, it is brought out. For example, he makes allusions to a 20-minute tape was watched by the leadership of Parliament, which ultimately was not true. If you ask some friends that we all have in Parliament, etc. And how does that make the embodiment of the various institutions feel?
For me, what is happening is diversionary. It's taking us away from the realities, things that are happening. As almost all the institutions in this country are not that holy. People do wrong things. And there is the need, there is therefore the need for some form of scrutiny. And I've always said that if institutions do not purge themselves of corruption, you get people to do it for you. And that is what has happened to the judiciary and other institutions that we've witnessed over the years. But that notwithstanding, I believe that fighting corruption it shouldn't come from one end. It's something that all of us as stakeholders need to get involved, because some of these things start from our homes into our offices and even in the church, because we see how people spend, and when we equate it to maybe the jobs that they do, you definitely know that this person is spending more than he or she can earn. So fighting corruption is not an individual's thing that we need to be focusing on two individuals. But he wrote something, Matiamidu wrote something, and the heading was, he said what, expose the judiciary, we protected Parliament, and we awarded the Agents Department. And when I read the whole thing, I was like, what is this man talking about? Well, you didn't do the investigation in the first place. Because if it's something that you have done an investigation on, then you have authority to actually say what you've been able to do. But this is something that somebody has done, and you come out boldly to challenge the authority of the person who is doing the investigations. Definitely, people will not take you serious. Definitely. It is not a situation where the thing has been given out, or maybe the information has been brought to the fore, whereby you have the information and then the information is not being given out. I'm not sure Anas had ever sat down with Martin Amidu to maybe video some of those tapes that he has. So it is very difficult. You don't even understand why Mr. Martin Amidu is waging that attack on Anas. But that notwithstanding, let's focus on the real issues. The issues are that corruption as it is eating up this country. Resources which are supposed to develop us as a people are going down the drain. And as such, as a country, we are not moving forward. So we should all stand up and then fight this menace. And that is it. So for me, it is not an issue of Anas and Matiamidu, no. We should disregard those media war. We should rather look within ourselves. What can we do to help society, to help Mother Ghana, to help the state achieve zero tolerance for corruption? And that should be the watchword.
Great speech from you. No wonder you're no more going. Crusading MP.
Anyway,
but
I won't make any comment now. But the reality too is that when
because I was just about to talk about
when this whole Anas thing broke out, if you remember, one comment I made here was the fact that state institutions, state agencies, security agencies, what have they been doing? Well, strictly speaking, it's not the work of Anas.
Yeah.
I mean, if your society, if you want your nation to work,
and you have your structures.
You have your structures working. You don't depend on an individual or private company. As for a private investigator Maybe it's private people who hire such persons. I suspect this. Can you cross-check for me? They hire you, you pay them, they do their work. We all see it around the world. But when it comes to stink, like FBI operating, it's a whole state machinery. It's, what resources does an ANAS have? It doesn't have the resources to be able to take on the judiciary. If national security was to do this job very well, they would unearth all these things. Some
and they can even do it simultaneously.
Yes.
They don't even have to do it for
recruiting people. They may even end up recruiting people who will go and expose the rot within. So that's the main issue that I want us to look at.
So it means as a country or as a state, as
governments,
we're not willing to empower those
institutions. We should not gloat over even the efforts of ANAS. I said it. We should not gloat over it. Yeah. He's done his bit.
You did say it. Yeah.
He's done his bit, but I mean, the Chief Justice, what system has she put in place?
So that's an indictment on us.
Very much so. What system has been put in place to ensure that those who are recruited in the judiciary, from the registry, the clerks in court, to the judges themselves, everybody who works in the judiciary, what kind of system is in place to expose the wrong ones? Because the whole system will break down if you don't have any mechanism to ensure that it's a clean system. And you have to wait for ANAS. Probably something that you could have done in a year. It's taking him how many years? If the state had its own machinery in place, maybe what ANAS has done is just a tip of the iceberg. And we should be told, going forward, how are we going to address some of these things? It's part of what you may be doing is maybe even amateurish. Maybe you come and sit in parliament, maybe at the cafeteria, disguised, and then record people in their conversations.
And make conclusions.
That's the extent to which he can go, because that is those are the resources he may have. But the state itself recruits people, pays them to do a certain kind of work. What do they do? How come when you have in the US system, they can even do cross-border? They'll be able to chase even FIFA out of office. Yeah. But here, people even pride themselves in saying that I work at BNI, I'm a national security, and that is all.
On the taxpayers' payroll.
Yes.
But then...
And they keep recruiting, we don't even know how many people are even...
For all that Obi is saying, it takes the willingness of governments. It takes the willingness of a government to say, this is what we want to achieve within a certain timeline, and this is what our mantra is. And we don't seem to have that, do we?
Well, when these issues are raised, one common theme that comes or go through is lack of resources.
No.
Most
of on this one.
No, most of our, these institutions that are supposed to monitor.
And Obi is trying to make a point that the willingness is not there, because if the commitment is there, just like the way we devote money to blue chip compounds.
If you say the willingness, is it on the part of government or on the part of the individual who is supposed to work? Let us get it clear. You take Yoko. This is an institution that the state has put in place. Their role is to investigate more practices within the system, okay? Some of the information may come from maybe governmental sources. Some of the information may come from individuals. Now, people are being paid to work. So if within that particular institution, people get paid and then they don't work, it is a different thing. Now, if they are given the needed resources that they need to work and they are not doing their work effectively, it's also another issue. So, for me, it is, one, are they being adequately resourced? If they are adequately resourced, do they have the expertise, the competence to do the sort of work that they are mandated by law to do? These are the two things we need to look at.
Well, these questions, they are hanging questions. We have a government in place. The government should know its priorities. If they are not resourced, why are they not resourced?
He's a young MP. Even though he's not funny, he has to be back in Parliament.
In Parliament, when the budget...
so is it the same ritual?
Those are the issues that we raise.
Is it the same ritual that you pay salaries and wages and that is the end of it. I'm sure we're coming to the budget. But it's the same ritual.
Because I'm just about to talk about the budget now. There's an institution that has been talking the last couple of weeks. It's called the Institute for Fiscal Studies, and it's led by one Professor Leslie Dwight Mensah. He's described as abysmal government performance on the implementation of the budget that is just year ending, for which we're now going to read the next fiscal one. I'd want to ask you, Obi Amwa. We're here talking about the budget last year. We're here coming to talk about a new one. Have you been satisfied with the various timelines, expenditure levels, and even the targets that they were just proud to get into our involvement with the IMF, which your side of the house had also predicted, which government, of course, came out to deny?
Well, I don't think the government can say anything different from what the figures say. And if you remember, apart from even the November 2014 budget, which was read for 2015, there was a mid-year review, 2015 mid-year review. And when the mid-year review came, the government itself admitted that it had not met its targets, it had not done what it said it could do. So they had to even lower the targets. The government came asking for more money. So we were all excited. Now if government is asking for more money, the government is going to push or pump the money into the system to develop the system. But the money the government came to ask for, 90% was for servicing debts, amortization, interest payment, exchange losses, whatever you can think of. So the figures are not good for a critical place like the industry sector. I mean, the performance at the full figures they submitted at a certain point was 0.8%. Very abysmal. So, and if, as you tell you, when the budget is read, the most critical thing is for the sector committees to meet the various MDAs to find out what has gone on the whole year. The figures which come out, 90% salaries and wages, goods and services, 0.something%. As for other investments, nothing happens. And going through this system, nothing has changed much for us to expect any miracle tomorrow. It will be just trying to, maybe diplomatic language, trying to give hope, because 2016 is election year and injury time budget, they have to let people know that still give us the mandate to run the system, we can do it. But
is that the catchphrase? Is that the catchphrase, injury time budget?
Oh, it's just my own my
conceptualized phrase.
My own phrase, but it's injury time. There's nothing much they can do. If it's in a football match, you're down 3-0, you start making substitutions 5 minutes to full time. The referee may add another 5 minutes, but most likely you cannot recover. So this budget may try to reduce taxes, may try to do things that people say that, hey, it's a soft budget, but it cannot be achieved. And nothing will come out of it. What will happen is looking for money to spend, because it's election year.
Keflos, that brings us to the point.